G'day everyone, I'm here with Chris Yip. Chris is a powerlifting coach, a well-renowned powerlifting coach and athlete, previously based in Melbourne, now based in Sydney, which we're going to get into a second. He's the owner and coach of Dark Horse Powerlifting, who are competing at this year's Team Champs, 2024 Team Champs. So I'm excited to have Chris on board. We've got a lot of things to talk about, and he's got a lot of experience both in powerlifting and at Team Champs. He competed last year as well, so I'm going to be asking him some questions about that. But first of all, thanks for making the time to be here, Chris.
Yeah, man, my pleasure.
So you just said to me before we kind of hit record there that you've kind of got two teams that are coming, and I thought that as well, and it's an interesting kind of case. So before we kind of get into anything, do you want to explain a little bit about who your teams are and what do you mean by that?
Okay, so I've got Dark Horse Powerlifting, which is my actual powerlifting business, and I've got 4 people in there. And then last year when I competed at Team Champs, as you mentioned, I actually met one of the teams, and they're called Team VQ, which is the inverse of QV because they train at QV Fitness First in the city. And I don't know, I was just talking to a few of the guys, and then eventually I literally just started coaching the entire team. So they're competing again because they want to, and then I coach all of them. So technically I am coaching 2 teams instead of just 1.
Yeah,
But
so it's like you are the
I'm only
coach
coaching
of
1
VQ, although you can't be the...
Yeah. So
Yeah,
someone
of
else is
course.
coaching. Yeah.
But they are effectively all your clients, is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly.
Dude, that's actually so fascinating. One of the ideas I actually had for Team Champs, and I don't know if you've seen many of the other podcasts, but I often talk about all these ideas I've got, was for teams to have a B team. So imagine let's say Liu Lift would have their A team, they'd have their top 4, and they would have a B team, which would be their next best 4 that they could submit. So clubs could have 2 teams. So especially bigger clubs or bigger coaching companies or businesses like you or like Victor or like Melbourne Strength Culture who have 50, 80, 100 plus members, they could submit 2 teams because they probably have like a B team that would be strong enough to compete. So you've kind of effectively done that in a roundabout way. But the idea with the B team would be that you get to coach them properly on the day because they'd be under the same brand. Yeah. But anyway, okay, that's fascinating. So you're gonna end up having 8 lifters on the day.
No,
we're gonna get into all that. And
there's another guy in another team.
Right, so coach extraordinaire. So we're going to go into that in a minute, and I'm going to ask you all about how that you expect that all to run. But for the very few people I imagine who might not be familiar with who you are or your coaching or your history as an athlete, do you want to give us a bit of a quick introduction as to how long you've been lifting for, what have your accomplishments been, and just a little bit of background as to who is Chris Yip?
Cool. So I started powerlifting. I've been lifting for a long time, since I was 14, maybe even before that, 13. Started powerlifting 2019. First meet was then, and I was watching a lot of John Paul Kalki videos actually, and I saw that he was really strong and he had a really strong deadlift. So I was like, oh, maybe I can have a strong deadlift too. So I started training for that and pushing that, and I guess that's what I'm really known for is having a pretty good deadlift and just being pretty strong at that. Started coaching a little bit after I started powerlifting, and been coaching ever since. And more recently been, at least in the last year, been pretty successful and started having a lot of athletes, and that's where I'm now.
I mean, I think it's a bit of an understatement to say that you're a pretty good deadlifter, considering you previously held the all-time world record deadlift in 5 times body weight. But I don't want to dwell too much on that. You kind of said you only started in 2019, which isn't that long ago, and you've built up a bit of success. And before we hit record, you kind of said that you've recently moved to Sydney. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what that move has entailed and why you've done that?
Yeah, so as all athletes would understand, you can't really just be at peak performance forever. And I know that for me to be at my best, it's probably going to be sometime in the next 10 years or so. So I imagine 35, things will start getting pretty hard. And as well, my, I guess, priorities in life would definitely change more towards, I guess, building a family, building, a strong career, something that I'm really firm in. And, I know that I might not be coaching forever. And so I want to be spending my prime years in powerlifting, pushing powerlifting. And so I've actually moved to Sydney where the powerlifting scene is a bit stronger. People overall, I'd say, try harder. They're a bit sweatier, in everything they do. There's a lot more people like that. The average, I'd say, is higher. And so I thought it'd be a good place to be. Originally, it was America was the plan, but just not really viable at the moment. So Sydney was the next best choice. So living here now, pushing powerlifting.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I really respect the idea of moving for your passion and appreciating that it's also a short-term thing, like short-term is in 5 to 10 years, because yeah, it's like you're like, well, I can't do this forever, so I want to commit to it while I can, and then in the future I can change gears and move into a different stream of life. And I think that's a really like commendable thing. I don't think a lot of people have that kind of mentality or that kind of like approach to their training, you know. And I often preach a very holistic and sustainable way to train, but there's also this kind of other extreme, and I don't think you're promoting like, you know, crash and burn, but I think you're acknowledging that it's like, yeah, you can't do it forever, so while you can, you want to, you know, suck as much value as you can out of it.
Yeah, it's something that like I would only do for myself, and like it's gonna be so like contradicting because the team I'm setting the team champs is like the opposite end. But like I know for myself like what I want in powerlifting and the kind of person I am, and I know that like the last few years I haven't actually like pushed it as hard as I wanted to, and I've seen like in a very short term way like what that makes me feel like, and I know that I don't want that to feel like that on the longer term scale, so I'm just gonna push that harder while I still can, and before I eventually maybe stop. We'll see. But thank
Right.
you. I
No,
appreciate
I
that.
really, yeah, like I said, I really respect that. So you, I know you really wanted to put a team into team champs, so much so that you decided to put 2.25 teams into team champs. Before we go into that, I want to ask you about your experience last year. Last year, you lifted for Liu Lift, and there might even be a suspicion that you're going to lift again for them this year, but I'll ask you about that more directly in a minute. But last year, you competed in the winning team. You and Victor and the squad took out the top team, won the prize money, and you were also best male lifter. I think that was your first. It was definitely your first time competing at team champs, but I don't
Hmm.
know if you've even been to one before. Tell us a little bit about what that experience was like, and was that maybe, you know, I presume you enjoyed it enough to say, okay, cool, I want to send some of my lifters to that comp because that's a really good comp to be involved in. What was that like?
Oh, absolutely. So actually, I have been to Team Champs one time before last year, which was in 2019 or 2020, or no, 2019 before the lockdowns. I remember that comp was
Mm.
extremely good. I was watching all the teams compete. It was a really, really good comp. Jason Stupis was like killing it that comp, and that's why I was there. I was like watching him, handling him a little bit. But yeah, 2023 last year competed there as well. Again, amazing comp. I think Liz did a wonderful job. Really good fun. Probably the most fun meet I've actually had for multiple reasons, but just a really well run comp in general. And good to have a little bit of rivalries going in. Like I was originally going to pull out, but there's a few people, or a few people saying that they were going to beat me. So I was like, nah, not happening. So I started, yeah, I guess went back in comp mode 3 weeks out because people were talking shit. But yeah,
And so
in terms
now
of
you
team, yeah,
keep going.
go ahead.
All right.
Yeah, Team Champs in general, I think is a really fun comp, and I think people want to compete in it, and so like that's the biggest thing is people kept asking me like, oh, you're gonna send a team, can you put me in the team? And so I was like, okay, I'm definitely sending a team, but yeah, I thought it'd be really good fun for everyone.
Yeah, and I mean, like, now you've got your kind of your two teams competing here. Do you want to introduce us a little bit to who they are? At least your kind of primary team, Dark Horse. I'm going to interview someone from VQ a little bit later, but maybe you want to introduce to us at least who's competing for you in Dark Horse, what weight classes they're in, how the training's been going, and what you kind of foresee for them in their lifting.
For sure. So yeah, I selected the team mostly based on the people who've been with me for quite a long time and people who I really respect and who I think hold the values of Dark Horse very well. So I definitely am not trying to send a winning team this year. And just because it's the first time I am sending a team, I wanted to really make sure that the people who've been with me for a while, and the people who I really respect and who I really think uphold the values of the team really well, I wanted to send them. So the team is comprised of Andrew Fan is one of my oldest members, and I'm sending him. I asked him if he wanted to do it. He did. He's in the 82.5 kilogram class. It's funny. Like none of them are really having extraordinary comps because none of them are really competing at a time which would work really well for them. But I just wanted to make sure they had the opportunity at least to compete. Like he's just recently come back from like Vietnam, so he's gonna have a really interesting comp. And for most of them, it's gonna be about like just trying to have a good day and just being able to represent the team itself. So Andrew Fan, just come back from Vietnam like a little bit before the start of this current block, which was 3 weeks ago. So that will be really interesting. Lost a bunch of weight and whatnot, which we know affects his strength a lot. But I think it's just about trying to put together a good day. Carol Chu on the female side. I have two females, two males. She's been with me for a while now as well, 2021. And she's in the under 60 kilograms. She's someone who I really respect and I really think has helped me build my brand a lot and has really been with me the entire time essentially that I've been doing running Dark Horse. And so I thought it'd be really good to have her represent the team. She'll be again, similar situation, come out of like a really long competition year, pretty burnt out, but again, just trying to put together a good day. I got Naveed on the team as well. Again, someone who's been with me for quite a while, same rough time, like 2022 for Naveed. And for Naveed, he hasn't been with me for a super, super long time, but it's mostly like, I just think he is someone who I've really enjoyed watching grow as an athlete. And I think that, I think he really deserves this one on the team because he's someone who's very loyal and who's very much shown a lot of development. And I really want to see him put together a good meet. And then Sammy Kwang, which is a newer client, I'd say. But again, I think she just really embodies the Dark Horse ethos quite well. And that's the main reason for picking her. I didn't need another female as well. She's very committed to training, which is a big criteria for me, like just being committed to training overall. And yeah, she's the final member of the team.
Dude, man, awesome. And I think it's interesting because I've spoken obviously to a number of the other coaches, and there has been this almost like kind of two-way approach to choosing lifters on your team. Not necessarily two ways, but there's like multiple factors that you need to consider. Of course, the primary one would be being competitive. Who's going to be your best choices? Who's going to outperform their opponents? Blah, 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 blah. There's also this other element, this other kind of like, intangible elements, which you've kind of touched on. And, you messaged me prior to the podcast saying, let's like, look, man, I'm not going to be there to try to win the whole thing. I'm just there to like have a good time. And, I want to put my lifters in who I really respect and all this kind of stuff, which you've just described. And I think that's like a really valuable part of what the team champs can do for coaching brands. And I think like there's a lot of value in, you say turning to those clients and saying like, hey man, like I really want you to get on that platform, represent, wear the Dark Horse shirt, represent me and represent our group, because I think you like you said, really embody the ethos and the values that you have. So I think that's really commendable actually, because I mean, like there can only be one team that wins, for example, at least on the day one, right, on the challengers bracket, like you guys. And I think it's easy, it's reasonable to expect that that's not a top goal or a top priority. And so instead of focusing on that, let's just like have a good time, put in the lifters that I want to be representing my brand up there. So yeah, I really respect that. What would you say are those kind of that ethos or those values that you uphold, and what is it about those lifters that you kind of see upholding?
The values, the main one's commitment to training. I think I really respect people and really like value my clients who actually care about training a lot and who want to put that training not first necessarily, but as a top goal in their life, where they don't miss sessions, where they make sure they're always showing up and doing their best and making sure they're taking care of their recoverables. That's something that I really value. Another one would just be that they are willing to learn, people who are actually willing to take on advice or technique or, with improving their recoverables, that kind of thing. Just being generally good people, like not even within powerlifting, but just within their own lives, people who are just like good to others, nice, kind people. That's another thing that I do very much value, because I think that it's very important that I'm putting together a team where they are nice people, because I do value that. I do value like just being kind to others. That's really it. Like just people who I've enjoyed watching grow as well. Like, a lot of these people, like they just started powerlifting when I started coaching them essentially. So it's also been really fun, like watching them grow in that way. And I think that that's something that I really wanted to showcase as well, I guess, is their progression from when they did their first meet with me potentially, or when they even was before powerlifting. For example, Carol, like I was training her at a very like gen pop kind of gym, to, where they are now.
No, that's fantastic. How would you say your values have changed? Like when you first started lifting, obviously, you came into the sport with a bit of talent already and you kind of were improving quite quickly. I remember seeing videos of you during lockdowns doing, 270, 280 deadlifts for fives. And I was like, everyone was like, who is this noob? And how is he so strong? But since then you've matured a lot, like I've known you kind of on and off, essentially since you started. And I can see it from my perspective that you've, matured a little bit, and, now you've got a healthy roster and you're dealing with all these different types of people. And when you only, I deal with a lot of coaches who, when they start coaching, because they've only ever dealt with their own experience, like your only client was Chris Yip, like your only client was yourself. So you only know that experience. And now you've coached dozens, if not more, lifters who have very different abilities, priorities, goals, whatever it might be. How do you think those values have changed? Like, what was your values maybe 3 years ago, and what are they, and why have they changed to what they are now?
Yeah, exactly as you said yourself. And I think it'd be a very similar situation to you, like where like when you're the only one, like when you only see your own experience, you expect that, I guess everyone wants to be the strongest powerlifter that they can be. And it's really just not the case for a lot of people. Like, and this is something that like I go on and off with, where I've had clients where, like one in particular, where I've just pushed him way too hard, and I've really seen him burn out so hard that it's really quite like hit me quite hard, where it just makes me realize that if you push people, too hard the wrong way, and it's not even their priority, then you can really burn them out and turn them off the sport completely. So I think that was a really, I guess, mind perspective changing experience, where it really showed me that, yeah, you can only push people as hard as they want to be pushed. And also some people just value getting stronger overall. And some people, quite frankly, don't really have the talent to even be as good as like the best in the world, even if they tried as hard as they could be. And so I think that's something that I almost didn't realize as well, because I thought that everyone just had extreme amounts of talent and maybe they just weren't trying hard enough. But for some people, it's really the reality that they will only get so far, and that's fine. And for them, just prioritizing enjoyment and actually just personal progression. And, maybe they won't want to push things as hard as other people just because they know that they probably won't progress as far. And so they have other things in life that they are putting their happiness sort of eggs in. And like seeing that as well, I think has been a really mind-changing thing. Hopefully that answers the question. I think that was a bit of a ramble.
No, that's fantastic. It's like, yeah, it's like you just described exactly what I was kind of like asking about, was just like, yeah, how it's changed and how in the past you might have had different opinions or different views, or maybe you're a bit more optimistic as a young coach, thinking, okay, these people can achieve these great things. And then, yeah, it's like no matter how hard you try, no matter how hard they train, sometimes people just don't progress very much, or like, yeah, they don't have that talent or that potential. But that doesn't mean they can't still train. So no, it was very interesting. I wanted to ask you now a bit more specifically about your lifters. You kind of said that you're not trying to put a team forward that's going to win or whatnot. I guess my first question here is like, what would you say are your goals as a group, and then as for the individual lifters? Like, what is your primary outcome? What is it that you're going to look back on a week after the meet and say, yes, that was a success, or no, that wasn't quite the success we wanted?
So the primary outcome is really just sending forth a team of people who I want to have showcase, represent the team. Because like I feel like a bit disingenuous for me to just send a team of my strongest lifters, which I actually have a few lifters who could definitely win their weight classes. And if I just put them on the team, there would have been a much higher chance. But I just feel like it'd be kind of like, especially because they're newer people to me, like if I'm just like disregarding all my older lifters and sending the stronger ones, I feel like that's just not what I would want to represent for myself as a coach. So yeah, that was really just one of the big goals, is I want to send forth a team where they are people who have been with me for a while and who have been coaching for a while and who I think that represent the team well. So that is the major goal. In terms of more individual goals, again, like they've all come through nationals. Some of them have just been doing back-to-back comps for ages and they're very burnt out. So really the goal of the comp is not even to necessarily peak them super hard, but to just have a meet where they can build into it. They can, hit a comp, have some fun, represent the team, and then they can obviously build towards things later in the year, whether it be another local meet and then a nationals or just nationals itself. But it's just really to have fun, and I think that would be the main goal for all of them. Like going into individual goals for Carol, she's definitely the one who I'd say is potentially the most burnt out. She's done like 5 comps last year, and she started powerlifting like a bit before that. Like she's been smashing the comps just because she really wanted to, and I think for her, really just building up and looking into like a 2-year goal of where do we want to end up in 2 years has been really important. Where we've been looking forward into like, okay, how can we make it so that you're not so stressed out about what's happening in training right now, and you can look towards building towards something later down the line, because she was just redlining, I call it, for a long time, where she's just pushing it so hard. And when you're redlining that hard or pushing things so hard, you kind of lose the sense of creativity, where you don't actually allow for experimentation in technique or in programming. And that just leads to you hitting the same roadblocks or bottlenecks continuously, and you just don't really make the progress that you want to see. So ironically, pushing it too hard in the short term just leads to less progress in the short term and long term. That's a big thing for her. I think it'd be the same for Sammy, honestly. I've been coaching her for maybe 6 months now, and she's done like 2 comps, and this will be the 3rd. So same thing, like trying to make sure that we're looking towards a longer term goal. For Andrew, it's literally just about let's get a comp in, because he's lost so much body weight and has a very, very linear relationship like with his strength. So just trying to do a comp, trying to put forward a good performance, try and see what numbers we're going to hit at a much lower body weight. And with obviously coming back from like Vietnam 3 weeks ago, which I didn't realize he was going to go on vacation for 3 weeks. I thought it was a shorter period of time, but it is what it is. And I still wanted him to be on the team anyway, because I think he's my longest lasting member now, besides one guy who comes on and off. And then for Naveed, try and showcase a good performance. I think he's probably like the least burnt out, which is good. and just try and hit some PBs on all three lifts. Nice and simple.
Love it, man. Love that. That's awesome. And yeah, like you said, it's like keeping those goals realistic, trying to train people in a way that suits them, like, trying to avoid that burnout. It's all very valuable. An interesting point is that a couple of months ago, you sent me an email and said, can I be coaching one team and lift for another team? And since then, your name has not appeared on any lifting list. There is some speculation that Chris Yip might be a late super sub or switch into the Liu Lift team. Is it a realistic idea that you would coach on Saturday and then compete on Sunday, having swapped into Liu Lift, or are you going to shut that down right now?
Yeah, I'm not competing. Like 100% not competing. At the time when I asked you that, like I just come off another comp and I was trying to think forward to like, okay, what do I want to do this next year? Because I do know I want to push training. Hadn't moved to Sydney yet, and I was trying to put myself through like a weird goal, like because I didn't want to at the time I didn't want to really go the IPF route or anything, but I wanted to like kind of run through meets and just make a bunch of like win a bunch of prize money. So I had another meet in mind that's like in 2 weeks now, which I'm not going to do either, where it's like a deadlift only meet. The prize money would have been like $3,000, but that's really not my priority either. I was going to do team champs. I was going to do another meet after that. Like there was just a few meets running around the year where I was planning to have like a full year of like, okay, let's just see how much money we can make off powerlifting for fun. But nah, not the goal right now. And I have other aspirations where I want to, yeah, I want to compete in other federations essentially. So not doing that.
Okay, good. Okay, glad you clarified that. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little sneaky change. I will believe you 99%, but you can just never be 100% sure. Look, the meets are coming up. It's only six weeks away or 7 weeks away. I've lost count. I think it's only five weeks away now, something like this. But it's going to be really good fun. I don't know if you've been paying attention much to other lifters or other teams. Like you said, you are kind of a little bit more focused on your lane. Do you have any ideas or is there anything in particular you're looking forward to? Any lifter you're particularly looking forward to watching, or any ideas on who might be a favorite to watch out for?
Yeah, as you mentioned yourself, like I haven't been too in tune with like who's competing, which teams are like pushing which ways, because I know that if I was very in tune with that and I was very much like looking at their numbers and whatnot, it would potentially spiral like how I'm coaching my own lifters and maybe take them down the wrong route of trying to push them too hard when it's meant to be a fun meet, which obviously would completely contradict the goal of what we're trying to do there. And I think that could actually lead to a much more negative outcome where now I'm pushing them too hard and they weren't in a position where they could be pushed hard and now no one's having fun and now, yeah, we're just like nothing's really good is coming from that. I will have probably a look at the teams 2 weeks out just to see if I can like jostle for some positioning here or there. But as of now, I haven't really looked into the other teams too much. Which team will win? I'm not quite sure, man. Like, what do you think, JK? I'm actually curious.
I literally have no freaking idea. I'm gonna go on record and put forward my prediction at the last minute. I think that's the plan.
Yeah,
Is I'm gonna film a podcast about a week out and put down my final predictions. But for now, I've got no idea. So it doesn't sound like you've got much more of an idea than I do.
absolutely not. I think we have the same plan. Like 2 weeks out, once we actually see some numbers, like, because you don't know what's gonna happen. People can get injured. Like, push too early, break your back. Not pushing those final 4 weeks at all.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna be a bit of a theme, to be honest. Like I haven't heard much of that. There's already been a couple of swaps. Like I had someone make some swaps the other day. I'm not sure the exact reasons why, but like you said, like people get injured in the training, especially in preps, especially when there's a lot of pressure. People are training harder than maybe they normally would, and so yeah, it's very hard to make those predictions. And so we're just gonna have to see. I mean, even the day before, it's gonna be impossible to predict because there's just so many variables, so much chaos, so many different factors that are all gonna play a role at the last minute.
Absolutely.
Cool, man. It's been absolutely a blast chatting to you, getting to hear your perspective, both as a lifter when you competed, but also as a coach. And the kind of approach that you're having, I wouldn't say it's unique. I don't want you to think that it's like wrong or in any of that sense. I think it's actually really, really valid way of looking at or approaching a meet like this because I don't know if you heard the episode I did with Alexander Delaportis, and he talked about how preparing for Team Champs last year was a huge benefit to the culture in the gym. Obviously they're in a physical gym, whereas I think you're primarily in an online space. But he kind of talked about how training for the Team Champs made everyone more excited. Like the lifters that were in the team but also even the other people in the gym that weren't in like lifting, they were excited to just support their teammates, to train with them, to motivate them, and it really uplifted the culture. And so there is also this like hugely intangible benefit that you can't explain. And so yeah, it's been really a blast to hear your perspective on that.
My pleasure too, man. Really good speaking to you.
I'm going to wish you the best of luck, and I'm going to talk to you very soon. Cheers.
Done. Talk to you later.